Hey, I'm Vin, and this is Give It Space. For the next few minutes, we're going to sit with one feeling, idea, social norm, identity, or just whatever might be weighing on us in this moment. Together, we'll explore where it comes from, why it lingers, and give it room to breathe without trying to fix anything. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's give it some space. All right, people, welcome back. Or if you're new here, hi, hello, how are you? I apologize for those of you who are viewing because I know that I have like magic lights happening. Um, they're purple today, they're normally blue and green, but I figured for those watching you would want something interesting to look at, and this is the best I could do. So, if I move my hands around, you'll see the shadows. I hope you're entertained. Are you not entertained? Anyways, I'm trying to switch up between the heavy stuff and the lighter stuff, so here's hopefully another lighter episode to get you into the groove of this week, even though this is being posted on Tuesday, so that's pretty early. This one is titled True Crime and Horror. Do we think it's fun to be scared? Boy, do I have an episode for you. Now, you may be wondering why I chose to talk about this right now. With everything going on in the world, aren't there more important things? Isn't it a little tone deaf when there are real violent actions being portrayed and school shootings and people starving and genocides? Yes. Yes, there are. But this is relevant. At some point, it will be relevant, I promise, and it was really interesting for me to research, so I thought I would share. To kick us off in the I'm disappointed. I I can't even say I'm a disappointment. Oh my god. It's gonna be a long episode, guys. It's gonna be a really long episode. To kick us off in the usual way, I'm gonna start by telling you what true crime and horror are. From dictionary.com, true crime is a genre of film, television, writing, etc., in which real crimes are examined or portrayed. And horror is an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. Now, right off the bat, neither of these things would ever be grouped with the word fun, and for good reason. But we can't just seem to stay away from these things. There's a reason why Crime Junkie ranks number 5 on most listened to podcasts worldwide, why horror movies are highest in revenue, market sales, and overall profit compared to every other genre, and why Stephen King is one of the most notorious authors ever, period. But what about true crime and horror draws us in? Why do we stay to watch the whole movie through our hands? Why do we listen to creepy podcasts at night when we're home alone? And why do we read horror novels? Just in general, why do we read horror novels? I don't know. It's new to me, but it's new to me, but I'll tell you why. Haha, lol. Anyways, controlled fear experiences. Basically, creating fear in an otherwise safe environment where you can simply turn off the movie, pause the podcast, or close the book allows us the same psychological high triggered by fear without the real risk factors. When you perceive yourself as being in a threatening situation, adrenaline surges and your fight or flight is activated. Your heart beats faster, breath quickens, blood pressure goes up, body tenses as it prepares you for danger. But once your body realizes it's safe, you experience something like a runner's high, where your body releases dopamine and gives you a sense of relief or pleasure. In one study, researchers found that people who visited a high intensity haunted house as a controlled fear experience displayed less brain activity in response to stimuli and anxiety post exposure. So basically, The Conjuring, an episode of Morbid, playing The Last of Us, or reading Stephen King can actually make you feel calm afterwards. Shocker. That would explain why one of my favorite TV shows and why it is my comfort show is The Walking Dead. Anyways, The Walking Dead is top tier, highly recommended. I didn't even watch it until like a couple years ago. I wasn't allowed to watch stuff like that when I was growing up. Like some kids grew up watching Glee, and some kids grew up watching Degrassi, and some kids grew up watching iCarly. Some kids grew up watching The Walking Dead. I was none of those. I grew up watching SpongeBob. Anyways. But it's not purely for entertainment, it's also for preparation. By watching. What? Oh my god. I said it was going to be a long episode, didn't I? Everything is falling apart. Okay, sorry. Oh, let me collect myself. Where was I? Oh. By watching, listening, or reading about worst case scenarios, we tend to feel more at ease knowing and planning for how we would handle that situation if it were to come to fruition. I literally used a zombie apocalypse as an example in like, what, 2 episodes ago? Yeah. And that's a conversation I have all of the time. It's why I always know where my exits are in every room. It's why I know that if there's a shooter, this is where I would go. This is my exit. This is how I would barricade a door. This is what I have available to me to barricade a door. If there's a tornado, I always know where the nearest staircase is. I always know if there's a basement. If there's a zombie outbreak, I know what places to avoid. Downtown Chicago, couldn't catch me there. Absolutely not. Fun fact, when I lived in downtown Chicago, literally the first thought in my head after moving into my apartment was, what would I do if a zombie apocalypse broke out right now? You want to know what my plan was? My plan was to have a break bag or whatever you want to call it, run down 17 flights of stairs, straight to like Navy Pier or some sort of marina, steal a boat. I don't know how to drive a boat. Anyways, steal a boat and then just drive the boat along the edge of Lake Michigan until I recognized the nearest pier to my house or my parents' house. And then I would just anchor the boat, swim to shore, and then go find my parents. That was my plan. Anyways, all of these reasons, we like to prepare ourselves and we make fun of preppers, but maybe it's just organization. Maybe they're thinking ahead. Maybe we should all know a prepper so that way if the grid goes down, they have extra lithium batteries, or they know how to make candles out of oranges, or they can store food properly, or they know how to build a garden or something. Like things that we would never even think of knowing or even learning. Maybe a prepper knows. Maybe you should befriend a prepper. Find yourself a prepper. Or be the prepper. I don't know. Or find me, because I aspire to be a prepper when I have more money. It's like that running joke of how people who play Call of Duty, Valorant, Halo, or other first person shooter games will be the first people to be recruited and drafted if World War III happens. Because these games often make players walk away feeling like their cognitive skills have improved, or that they could easily shoot a real gun or kill a real person in real life. They've experienced graphic violence through the game, and therefore, in their brains, that equates to real life experience. Again, it's a desire for control, autonomy, adrenaline, and emotional regulation through this safe virtual environment. In an article from Psychology Today, author Pamela B. Rutledge mentions how women specifically are more drawn to true crime than anyone else. She says it's because women statistically face higher risks of being victims to violent crimes, which is true, and that true crime media can serve as a form of psychological rehearsal. Isn't that fucked up? I'd never heard of that before. But basically, by listening and learning, women feel better equipped to recognize, respond, and control unsafe situations as they arise. She calls it threat management. It's not listening to scare yourself or feel depressed about what someone else just went through. It's to feel seen and connected to victims, to be vulnerable, and to seek justice for them while being detached. Funny thing is, I only recently got put onto horror and true crime from my sister, and you can thank her for that. If you're listening, I guess thank you, even though I'm still not the biggest fan of horror and stuff. Growing up, I hated feeling scared. I hated having nightmares. I hated being paranoid about every creak of the floorboards in our musty old house. And none of that has really changed, but I have some funny stories to share that help explain how I've come to be an avid listener of the Morbid podcast an enjoyer of haunted houses, horror films, and everything else. Now, this is going to take up a good chunk of the episode, so bear with me. I'm trying, I think these stories are funny. Maybe you won't think they're funny, but here goes nothing. So, all right, now before we go any further, I want to talk to you guys about an energy drink that I discovered recently. Now, I want to preface by saying I have had my fair share of energy drinks to get me through college lectures, but even those started to feel icky after a while. Overly sweet, acidic, literally described as battery acid online. That made me jittery and anxious after just one sip. Well, Aspire drinks are my new favorites. With 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea, 0 additives, 0 calories, and 0 sugar, you can skip the tummy aches and the crashes altogether. I love the Aspire energy drinks because not only are they packed with vitamins, biotin, and even ginger, but they just taste amazing with flavors like mango lemonade and raspberry acai. Plus, they're carbonated, and if you know anything about me, then you would know that I love me my bubbly drinks. But don't you worry, my friends, I got you the highest discount they offer, so you can try these for yourself. Just go to aspiredrinks.com. That's ASPIRE drinks.com. Pick your favorites, enter my promo code SPACE11. That's SPACE11 and get 20% off plus free shipping in the United States. I also want to say that I earn a commission when you use my code. So when you buy, you're not only getting a healthier energy drink, you're also supporting me and this podcast directly. And to that, I just want to say thank you in advance. Like I said, did not grow up enjoying horror movies very much. That was my end all be all. I did not want to just go to a sleepover, watch a scary movie, and then fall asleep. That was not how it worked. So, after a couple of attempts from my sister to get me into horror movies, we watched Hereditary together. And I am going to be spoiling a couple of different movies and episodes, so I'll tell you what the episode is or what the show is. So this one is Hereditary. If you've watched it, great. If you haven't, I'm about to spoil one of the main portions. Basically, my sister tried to get me to watch it with her. We watched it. I was fucking terrified. And then I was like, well, I handled it. I didn't have nightmares after, so I might as well watch it again. So I invited 7 of my friends over to my house. We sat in my basement, and this was during high school, and we watched Hereditary on the biggest fucking flat screen TV I had ever seen in my life, because my dad loves the surround sound. So we also had surround sound speakers that were in front of the TV on either side and then behind us. So we had 4 speakers blasting Hereditary in my basement. My parents were home, and we had a small love seat leather couch and then 2 other matching leather couches or chairs on either side. So in total, we could probably only fit 3 people max on that couch and then 2 people in the chairs. By the first 15 minutes of the movie, all 7 of us had made our way onto that small 2-person couch. And then when the sister gets beheaded, we all jumped so fucking hard. I even knew it was coming, but I jumped so hard. We actually flipped the couch backwards as we were screaming, and my parents came down thinking that we were just fighting or that somebody had gotten murdered or whatever, and then we all just started laughing because we had flipped the couch over because we were all so scared. And it was in that moment that we trauma bonded over the movie Hereditary and a girl being beheaded. Isn't that wild? So yeah, now every time I think of Hereditary, I think of flipping a couch over with my friends, and it's a great bonding experience. The second story is about the movie Nope that came out, 2-3 years ago. Again, I still wasn't really keen on horror movies yet. I had seen a couple more since Hereditary and before Nope to get myself familiarized, but I still wasn't a huge fan. I'm also really jumpy, so I don't like jump scares. And my sister forced me to go see this movie with her and her best friend. And I had said, I don't want to go see it. My sister was like, well, I already paid for the ticket, so you have to come. I was like, okay, free movie, I guess. So we get to the movie theater. We're going to get popcorn. We're going to get drinks. And I tell them, I'm like, okay, I'm going to see this movie with you, but I have rules. First rule, I sit in between you guys. I do not sit on the aisle. I do not sit next to some random stranger. I sit in between the two of you. That is rule number one. Rule number two, do not hand me anything during this movie. No drinks, no popcorn, no candy. I want nothing in my hands the entire movie because of these jump scares that I know are about to happen. So we get through majority of the movie, nothing happens, there's a couple of jump scares, whatever. And then right after, again, I'm about to spoil it, so if you haven't watched it, plug your ears. Um, we get to the part where the whole house had already rained blood, and my sister's like, "Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I might as well just go fill up our drink while I'm at it." So she leaves, she comes back. Again, I thought the climactic part had ended. And so my sister's like, "Can you just hold our large cherry Coke for a second while I sit down?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. Like, it's fine. The bad stuff is over. No more jump scares." Not even 2 seconds later, this giant fucking sculpture falls from the ceiling, or falls from the sky, and smashes into the main character's car. I jump so hard. I squeeze the cup and I jump out of my seat and it all just comes flooding all over me. And I was so embarrassed, and my sister and her best friend on either side of me just start laughing their asses off to the point where people in the movie theater are turning around to see what happened. And I was so, oh my god, it was awful having to walk out of that movie covered in cherry Coke. I will never forget that. But it was funny, and we all walked away laughing, so I guess it was fine. And now I associate the movie Nope with me jumping out of my seat and spilling shit all over me instead of the terrifying events of the movie or whatever. Another one, my first time in a haunted house was the type where you had to sign a waiver allowing them to touch you, the scare actors, and I had no idea what to expect. And I was with a group of my friends from high school, and in line, one of my friends was really, really scared, and they like prey on the people who are scared. Like if you show fear, they will not leave you alone. So my friend at the time was really afraid, so like the scare actors kept coming up to our group, and I kind of just was designated like the unafraid one for some reason. So everybody else was scared, but I was designated the leader. So I was forced to lead our group of four through a haunted house, my very first time ever going through a haunted house, and it was terrifying, the anticipation of all the jump scares. And I'm not like, I mean, I want to think of myself as brave and heroic, but in that scenario, I was like, what the fuck is coming at me at any corner? Like, I don't want to be responsible for my three best friends at the time. And we got to the very end, and while you were waiting outside in line to go into this haunted house, you could hear the chainless chainsaws, and they happened at the very end of the haunted house. And then the exit to the haunted house was like this narrow corridor that had windows that you could see from the outside. So while you were waiting in line, you would see the people exiting and running away from the chainsaws as they were leaving the haunted house and you were going in. So we finally get to the end, and remember, I'm in the front. As soon as my friends hear those goddamn chainsaws, they push past me like a mad dash for the end. They are sprinting. I almost collapse under their force. So they've all pushed past me. I'm almost on the ground trying to like keep my bearing. And I remembered that there's a guy with a chainsaw behind me. And so instead of turning around to look at the guy with the chainsaw, I am so fed up with my friends for ditching me and just running and pushing me aside that I'm like, I don't even fucking care about this dude anymore. Like, I'm done. Y'all piss me off. I'm going home. So I proceed to just walk out of the hallway with the guy with the chainsaw standing right behind me the entire time, revving the chainsaw in my ear, and I just could not give less of a shit. Like, I'm sure I was supposed to be scared. I probably was a little bit scared, but I was just seeing red. I was like so angry at my friends. And I walked out and I realized that everybody in line had been watching me just walk past this guy with the chainsaw, that they all started applauding me. And I was like, what the fuck? What is going on? And my friends were like, oh my god, you're okay, you're okay. Like, weren't you scared? I was like, no, bitch. Don't ditch me in a haunted house with a guy with a chainsaw. Like, come on. So, anyways, that was my first haunted house experience. And probably the best, honestly. And then the last story, the most recent Morbid episode that I've listened to was the trilogy about the Hillside Stranglers. And I had no idea who these guys were, what these murders were. If you haven't listened to it, it's really good, it's really informative, and it's really dark. It is horrifying. I had no idea what I was expecting, but it was not that. I was absolutely disgusted by the guys, the Hillside Stranglers, Kenny and whatever his face is. I don't even care to remember. I was listening on the way to work, mind you, which was not smart because then I went into work with this awful mindset of, oh, I just listened to an episode about really horrific torturing of young girls in California. Um, so it put me in a bad headspace for the rest of the day. But I think part of the reason why I enjoy Morbid specifically so much, I love Ash and Elena, and I'm a very new listener, so I'm not a bandwagon. I just haven't had the time yet. My sister put me onto them too, so if Ash and Elena, y'all ever hear this, hey, my sister is a huge fan, and I am now a huge fan, so like, hit me up. But anyways, the reason I love Ash and Elena is when I listen, it makes me feel safe enough to be able to talk about how I'm feeling in the moment and talk along with Ash and Elena to their reactions. So in the moment, even though it's not happening currently, you're just listening to somebody else talk about these murders, you're learning about the capabilities and the methods that are used against human beings. You're just learning about what people's minds, their dark, twisted, fucked up minds can conjure. And it's really terrifying because, like, I didn't know people were capable of doing shit like that. And then you learn that and you're like, oh my God, what kind of human being is that? But the last thing I'll say about Morbid is I really, really appreciate how they treat each victim when they talk about these episodes and these events. Because obviously, this is a real human being. This is a real story about somebody having their life ended for them in the most brutal way. They do something where they talk about life before death. For each victim, they talk about who they were, what their hobbies included, how people described them, what their goals were. Not just, oh, this was some blonde chick with a hot body or whatever that was a dental assistant. It's no, this person's name was Kelly and she was smart and she was brave and she was a planner and she was a part of a dance troupe or whatever. Like the way that they approach it with respect and empathy is something that I would want to be done for me. And I think that's why I enjoy Morbid so much, is because it feels a little bit more personal, not just, oh, here's this horrific story, deal with it. It's, yeah, here's this horrific story, but here are the people involved. Here's who they were. Here's what made them human and undeserving of it. And we can acknowledge that they were undeserving of it. And we can acknowledge that in the end, justice was served. So that was a long tangent. And we've gone over how horror can be fun. But it's not all clowns and zombies. We have to remember that too much exposure to true crime and horror can have serious repercussions if not dealt with properly. For instance, the belief that the world is more dangerous than it is leads to distrust, hypervigilance, anxiety, and overestimating personal risk. It also goes back to the beginning where I said there's a reason true crime and horror genres are so popular. It's because they're easy. You don't need a stacked cast of actors or some crazy jaw dropping scenery to make a good movie and to draw people in. But the line between storytelling and sensationalism only gets thinner as time goes on. Dramatized documentaries or films leave viewers unable to distinguish fact from fiction. They desensitize audiences for entertainment value. Not to mention, it often leads to the glorification of criminals. Most recently, Jeffrey Dahmer, played by Evan Peters, Ted Bundy, played by Zac Efron, Christian Bale in American Psycho, the list continues. Lastly, and you can thank social media for this, we've invented the term armchair detectives in reference to the culture of online speculation regarding real life crimes, disrupting legal proceedings, inserting biased opinions, and influencing public narratives in destructive ways. I'm the last person to tell you to stay away from true crime and horror. That's definitely not my goal. I'm also not trying to push you into going to a haunted house because dopamine and adrenaline. No, although I find it super fun. As humans, we love the idea of facing danger without consequence. For example, I sometimes have dreams, mostly after watching a movie or like in high school after we'd have an active shooter drill, where I would save my friends or my classmates by leading people out of the school to safety or disarming the assailant in some badass way or even sacrificing myself. One dream went so far as to me literally being shot in an attempt to save my friends, ending up in the hospital, and then people bringing me gifts and news reporters in my hospital room sharing my story because of how heroic I was. But again, it's fake danger, near impossible situations that my brain conjured to make me feel capable and brave, like I could survive anything. And we also have a morbid curiosity for the dark, twisted minds of others. Hearing about the horrific ways people were tortured and murdered under the guise of it being for research purposes, only so we know the warning signs or how to avoid situations like those, blah, 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 blah. But I think ultimately, we like the idea of cheating death. Playing the who's first to die in a horror movie game. Yes, we get dopamine spikes from being scared, adrenaline or whatever. But listening to, watching, or reading about victims of brutal deaths makes us disqualify ourselves from the equation. Oh, it was a 12-year-old? Check, I'm 22, doesn't apply. Oh, they lived in rural Idaho? Check, I live in a big city. Not me. They're a girl? Check, I'm a guy. Done. Over. We subconsciously reassure ourselves that we won't befall the same fate, that at least our inevitable deaths won't be like that. But sometimes it can all feel like a little bit much. Too much true crime can overload your system. Too many haunted houses or horror games desensitize you after a while. So now comes the part of the episode where we give it some space. This is an exercise I do in each episode to give us pause from the weight of the topic. So today, we're taking a moment to acknowledge our desire and amusement in regards to horror and true crime. No matter our intentions, our thrills, what we gain, what we learn, we are just giving it space. So if you want to join me, start by taking a deep breath in through your nose and out through the mouth. Remember that you don't have to love scary things. You don't have to listen to true crime every day in order to file away all of the information. You don't need to feel bad about getting a dopamine boost every time you watch The Shining or Paranormal Activity. You don't even have to believe any of it's true. It's okay to have fun with friends on Halloween or go DIY ghost hunting or watch the newest abduction documentary on Netflix. So long as we remember that horror is only good in small doses. Too much can cause more paranoia than it's worth. And to always be respectful of the facts behind the podcasts, the books, the movies, the games, and so on. If it happened in real life, to real people, it's important that their life experiences are not merely entertainment. Bringing us back to today's episode title, Do We Think It's Fun to Be Scared? Honestly, even with all the research I've done, I don't believe that there's a definitive answer to that question. I personally don't enjoy being jump scared or the anticipation built up in movies, or even walking through a haunted house. Sometimes I'm terrified. But I think it can be fun in groups, when we can all walk away and laugh about who screamed the loudest, or who tipped the couch over first, or who pushed me out of the way to get out of the haunted house. I don't think true crime really brings that same thrill. It's darker, more intense, and often causes us to think about what we would do in certain situations, which gives us more of an internal panic than an outward fear response. Moving forward, I want to note that true crime and horror follow a trend. When times feel violent, unpredictable, and chaotic, we see a spike in true crime coverage and horror/thriller content. It provides us with feelings of community, control, emotional resilience, and belonging. Maybe we're all adrenaline junkies. Maybe we love getting together with friends, snuggled up on a couch to watch a horror film and the trauma bonding that ensues. Whatever the reason is, true crime and horror can be fun, so long as we approach it ethically, responsibly, and with a little empathy. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful that you're here. This is Give It Space, your virtual room to slow down, breathe, and just be for a moment. If you want to support this podcast and me, you can get updates and sneak peeks into upcoming episodes on Instagram, or subscribe to my YouTube channel for videos and shorts at Give It Space Pod. I'm always happy to hear your feedback or thoughts for future topics, so DM me on Insta or shoot me an email at giveitspacepod@gmail.com. I'm your host, Vin, and I will see you next time. let it linger. You know who you are. You know who I'm at right now. Forgetting that stupid song stuck in my head forever ago. Alright, get into it, yeah. Let's go. Let's go. To kick us off, whoa. I keep hitting the microphone. My bad, guys. If you can hear that, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't breathe at all during that. Okay. And censor it. Oh, what was a too many haunted houses or horror. I'm your host, Ben, and I will see you next time. I didn't like that. I'm doing it again. Breathing first. Okay. I'm your host, Ben, and I'll see you next time. No, I didn't like that either. Yes! Score! Okay. What's that? Also, fun fact, the reason why I love The Walking Dead so much. First of all, Carl. Second of all, the comic books, way better than the TV show in certain areas. Also, some characters don't even exist in the comic books that do exist in the TV show, and I love them. But main reason for the TV show is Rick Grimes' head tilt. What is that? Wait, no, that's not the right thing. He goes, what does he say? I don't remember what he says. Oh my god. But he just says that, like, head tilt. Anyways. Bye. Bye. I gotta end.